Welcome to the Cricket Badger IPL Daily Podcast 2021. The Indian Premier League 14th edition. It's great to have you with us. From the first match all the way to the final. Chennai Super Kings, Delhi Capitals, Kolkata Knight Riders, Mumbai Indians, Punjab Kings, Rajasthan Royals, Royal Challengers Bangalore, Sunrisers Hyderabad. May the best team win. Brought to you in association with Who Knows Wins. Put your money where your mates are, and play along with the Cricket Badger.
Hello everybody, welcome along. It is another edition of the IPL 2021 live daily podcast from the Cricket Badger myself. I'm on the other side of the screen, you can see Neil Varani. And Neil, we've been realising over the last half an hour how much we need Facebook, haven't we? Our WhatsApp group, I was thinking this afternoon, very quiet on here. And basically Facebook's down, WhatsApp's down, everything's down.
Yeah, apparently there have been a couple of comments on the non-Facebook social media sites that saying Dhoni will do anything to stop criticism of his innings, including taking off the internet.
Well, we are obviously not,
that's
because of that,
quite reach.
Because of that, we're not broadcasting on Facebook today, but hopefully we're still going out on YouTube and hopefully we're still going out on Twitter. So if anybody is watching this, I have no idea if anybody's or not, then if you could just comment and let us know you can see us, that would be rather good. If the worst comes to the worst and we're broadcasting to absolutely nobody, Neil, because our world is down because of Facebook's problems, we will just strip the audio off and stick it out later on the usual traditional podcast format. It was funny, actually, Neil, the other day when I was interviewing the historian, I mentioned the fact that the podcast form, the audio form was traditional, and he kind of like raised his eyes as kind of, it's only been around about 5 years. How can that be traditional? Because basically, as a historian, he was going back rather a bit further than podcasts anyway. Neil, anyway, let's get to the cricket, shall we? Because we've been seeing a very good game actually today.
Yeah,
you mentioned prior to us pressing record there that it always looked like Delhi Capitals were going to win that game. They came out on top by 3 wickets, 2 balls left, and we'll talk a little bit about Shimron Hetmyer in a second. But Delhi Capitals go top.
And well deserved. I thought they were absolutely superb today, apart from a slightly pick and mix first over of the day and last over of the day. They were on top pretty much all the way through. Little blips here or there, but pretty much full control as far as I was concerned. And I thought they were superb. Really, really good. And worthy winners, and really looked dangerous as far as the title goes.
Yeah, I mean, we did the excuse me, a bit of a frog in this throat today. And we did we ran through the remaining matches yesterday on the podcast, and I won't do too much of a spoiler alert because you'll want to know what happens, listeners, in terms of the rest of the IPL. Might mean that you can actually miss the whole thing and know who's going to win it, because we were right today. We had Delhi Capitals to beat CSK today, and we had a smiley Rishi Pant anyway at the end of the tournament. So that probably gives away who won it. But Delhi Capitals, they look like a really good side. Axar Patel, man of the match today, or never lets Delhi down at all. But start with Hetmyer, 28 not out from him at the end, and demoted behind Ravichandran Ashwin. Maybe that was a little bit of mind games to kind of just wake him up a little bit. But he has always frustrated me, Shimron Hetmyer, because everybody knows he can hit a big ball. He knows he can hit a big ball. Everybody knows he can hit the ball. But so often he comes in, plays 3 or 4 nice shots, and then he disappears again. Very rarely sees it through to the close. And today he did do that.
Yeah, that's always been the frustration, hasn't it, with Shimron? It's never about the talent. It's about the application. It's about the dedication. He's almost like your stereotype of what a West Indian cricketer would be if you made one up in your head. Very laid back.
If you're playing on the beach with Shimron when you're a kid, all you're going to be doing is fetching it out the sea, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the talent there is so unbelievable and undeniable. And I think that's when you get really frustrated with the end product or the dedication to training. Sometimes I saw, I was watching the CPL, not this season, but the one before, when they had the first single ground CPL within lockdown.
Yeah.
And Samuel Badri was on commentary having a go because Shimron had spent lockdown hitting the pies and looked a million miles away from where he should be. To be honest, for me at the moment, he looks a little bit off the pace, fitness-wise, from what I've seen before. But maybe he's someone like Rohit Sharma, who, even when they are at the peak of their fitness, just look a bit bigger, and it's not actually reflective of how in shape they actually are.
Yeah, some players, I've kind of been up close and personal with not that personal, but with plenty of county players. And some of the players, I'd always had the image that they were a little bit tubby. When you actually see them without the shirt on and everything like that, they're not at all. They're just thick set. They're absolutely all
just
muscle.
Solid.
They're solid. And maybe Shimron's one of those. I mean, but having said that, to be fair to any cricketer, to be fair to anybody at the moment, it's a strange world that we live in. The pressures of being in bio bubbles, the pressures of being in lockdown and on your own, if you're a single bloke for 3 months or whatever, I can understand people maybe packing a few pounds on. I certainly have.
Oh, I won't comment because my wife has got enough comments about what's happened to me over lockdown. But apart from that, when he plays as well with Shimron, he's got that happy-go-lucky, and sometimes you wish that he'd be a bit more measured, go for a few less flash shots and, really build an innings, because you see him do it once or twice and he looks absolutely brilliant, complete world beater. And actually, this second part of the IPL, I've seen some really good innings from him, which have been a lot more responsible. And he still hits a really long ball. He'll still go after you when the ball is there. But previously, there was a tour where England went out to the West Indies. I remember an innings which I believe was literally 6 runs, 2 balls. Came out in a floppy, hit fast bowler for a 6, and then got out straight away. And that's what you'd be used to. Now we're seeing a lot more end products, and I'm really hopeful for the future with Shimron, because his talent is and potential is unbelievable.
I mean, he's got some very good people that he's working with as well. I mean, you don't get many better than Ricky Ponting to pick the brains of him in terms of batting and how to see a one-day match through to the close. Ricky might not have played that many T20 matches, but he's certainly played a lot of white ball cricket. So he's a pretty good mentor to have. I'll just be looking at the race for the orange cap here, Neil. And the top end of the leaderboard, or whatever you'd call it, is pretty tight. KL Rahul is on 528 runs. He's still got 2 matches to play if he plays both. 521 for Ruturaj Gaikwad, so he's only 7 behind KL Rahul. You've then got Shikhar Dhawan, who made a little bit of ground today. He's on 501, so only 27 behind KL, but with 1 game of the group stages to play at least. But he's obviously going to have a little bit more than that because he's into the playoffs too. Sanjay Samson with the Rajasthan Royals, he's got 2 matches still to play. He's 48 runs behind KL on 480. Faf du Plessis, he's got the 1 match left. He's on 470, but he's got the playoffs to look forward to as well. And then you've got Mayank Agarwal, Glenn Maxwell queuing up behind them too. I mean, the race for the purple cap for the bowling looks pretty much cut and dry, but the batting, anybody in the top 10 could still win that.
I think you're looking at 2 and 3 there, just because they've got more games than the rest, and possibly by losing, then Gaikwad and Faf du Plessis might have earned themselves an extra match on top of Delhi there. So it's a bit weird that by losing, you actually potentially give yourself an extra match to play to get that run total up. Gaikwad's also, apart from his 100 the other day, he's in pretty fearsome form at the moment. He's looking beautiful. So he'd be my pick there, definitely.
There's two players in the Delhi Capitals batting lineup that frustrate me. One is Shimron. We've talked about him. The other is Prithvi Shaw. He as well has all of the talent in the world. Absolutely blessed with talent. He can hit a cricket ball as sweet as anybody, but he just doesn't know when to check himself back a little bit and when to go for the full throttle. For me,
now I think with Shaw it's actually strategic. I think that Ponting has said that we'll have one person who values their wicket less, but you go really hard from the top. If you fall over in the first over or two, then we got Shreyas Iyer, we got Rishabh Pant, got Hetmeyer behind. We have other Stoinis or Smith or the lad Repal, who I hadn't seen before. Even Aksher and Ashwin.
Well, I liked him.
Yeah,
he looks okay.
I was impressed. He didn't look phased, which is the most important thing for new guys. But I reckon Prithvi Shaw's given that license to go hard, not care about losing your wicket, but see if you can get them off to a fly, because Shikhar Dhawan has pretty much perfected that fast accumulator role. He does it a lot quicker than the likes of KL and actually Virat as well over the last couple of seasons, and then accelerates even further after that. But he's a lot safer than Prithvi Shaw. So you've got that nice balance there, where Prithvi's allowed to lose his wicket if he's going at like a strike rate at 200. And I think it's fair enough. In a way, actually, it's very unselfish. I've spoken my own feelings about KL Rahul, who I think at times puts his own personal statistics over the team's needs.
You've got it in for KL, haven't you? You really have. If you're watching KL, I'm really sorry.
I think Prithvi Shaw, Jason Roy when he plays for England, those kind of players. I think that is really, really unselfish, where you put the team strategy ahead of your own personal milestones. So if you're getting out for 35 off 16, 70 balls every game, as long as the coach and the captain and the team understand what you're doing, then no one else is as worried the fact that you're not getting a 50 every now and again. You're doing what the team needs. So I'm okay with Prithvi there.
And Bhatti Rayudu played well today, didn't he? 55 from 43 balls, 5 fours, 2 sixes, just as his team needed him as well. The CSK were falling apart at the time.
He's just so reliable. Over the last 4 or 5 seasons, he's not someone who he's not one of the sexy names like a Pandya or a Pant or an Ishan Kishan, but he just keeps churning out runs at a high rate, very, very consistently. I know it's completely unfair, but I still wonder what could have happened in the 2019 World Cup, when I think he was dropped unfairly from that squad after very good returns on a very tough tour of New Zealand ahead of time. And he wouldn't have been in the first team, but after Shikhar Dhawan got injured and Rahul moved from number 4 up to opening, then we could have really done with him there. He's someone that you can really, really rely on. And I think I often haven't noticed how quickly he actually scores. But he scores quickly against pace and especially against spin. And he's the backbone of that CSK team, especially considering Suresh Raina had the balcony holiday last year. It's getting on a bit now. And he doesn't seem to be the player that he once was, or maybe CSK playing differently. But he's not.
He's just lost a little bit of his mojo, doesn't he? He's another one that looks quite fat from a distance, but I bet he's not at all.
Always.
Yeah, but I bet if you went up and prodded him, I bet he's hard as nails.
Well, I always remember. Yeah, he always looked really. It's like he's in his 30s, but hasn't lost his baby fat yet. But he's one of the best fielders that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And he'd absolutely, so agile in the outfield. Clearly the looks belied the actual truth there.
If we were to, do you agree with me with this following statement? CSK and Delhi Capitals have been the best two sides in this tournament so far.
No. Just because
that ruins my supplementary question.
Well, I would include Royal Challengers Bangalore in there. I think that all three have had the occasional off game, but they've equally been a step above everyone else. There's those three, then there's the pack of four, and then there's Rashid Khan and Kane Williamson on their own, right at the bottom.
Let's have a look at the table then. After Delhi Capitals win today, 3 wickets with 2 balls to spare. They made hard work of it towards the end, but they never really looked like they were going to throw it away. And Delhi Capitals have gone top of the table. They've got 1 game to play. They're on 20 points. I'm doing this as it scrolls across the bottom of the screen, so you can follow me. CSK played 13 as well. They're 2 points behind. RCB got 2 matches to go. They can just sneak past CSK if they win both. KKR looking handily placed to take 4th place on 12 points with the game to go. Punjab Kings probably have a bit too much to do on 10 points. Rajasthan Royals and Mumbai Indians have got 2 matches to play on 10 points as well. And we won't mention Sunrisers Hyderabad, Neil, because they're almost off a different screen, aren't they? Because they're that far behind. But on the basis of what we've talked about last night and the fact that Delhi Capitals have won today, CSK have got to be a little bit edgy, haven't they, with RCB just behind them? The top 2 matters, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does, because you get two bites of the cherry there, and we've seen that can matter. In fact, sometimes, it's not a risk that you'd want to take, but losing the first game and having to go into that eliminator actually gives you a bit more momentum going into the final, because you've won a couple of days before, whereas the team that qualified already has got a little bit cold in the meantime. So, getting in that top 2 matters, and CSK will be watching very carefully for RCB's next game to see what they need to do. I know Dhoni spoke the other day, and I think very fairly, about in addition to all the bubble fatigue and so on that people have suffered over this year with their own international and domestic commitments before the IPL as well, the fact that you're in a coach for 2 hours if you're off to Sharjah or Abu Dhabi, depending on where you're based initially, and the travelling. And he's been trying to get a few more players to have a bit of a run out and manage niggles. At the same time as making sure that you're managing people's health mentally and physically, you also have to keep an eye on the table. The fact that you've automatically qualified doesn't mean you can take your foot off the gas, because being 1 or 2 can matter massively compared to being 3 or 4.
I always think as well, if you're in the in the top 2 and you win that effectively semi-final, and you go straight through to the final, then you're on the beach for a week, aren't you? Effectively waiting for the other matches to be played. I often wonder how that affects teams and how the coaching staff, etc., manage that time, because you can go a bit cold, because the other teams are obviously that you're going to be facing are winning matches to get to see you in that final, and that can be a little bit problematic. And just go through the fixtures that are left here. Royal Challengers Bangalore take on Delhi Capitals in their last match. That could be a real crunch encounter, couldn't it? CSK have got Punjab Kings still to play. Just looking at the way the table's set up, you've got obviously net run rate could come into play in the final standings, and RCB's net run rate is far less good than CSK. So if they do finish level on points, is that the first divider, or is it head-to-heads that's the first one?
I think it's net run rate first, because previous previous qualifications that we've seen that come down to net run rates. I think famously, Mumbai Indians qualified on net run rates when Corey Anderson hit something ridiculous and they chased like 214 overs, and it came to that first ahead of head-to-head. So it definitely matters, and I think RCB haven't had those absolutely dominant victories. So yeah, I mean that could come into things.
Completely broke up on me there. I was hoping that you weren't going to freeze entirely, because otherwise I'm going to be left on my own. I mean, you'd imagine as well. I mean, if RCB do get level on points with CSK, if most wins is a divider, then they're going to be on the same amount of wins as well. So that's not going to be irrelevant either.
Yeah, I think it. You know, if they're on the same points, then it may come down to that absolute shellacking that that Kolkata gave RCB a few games ago. Chennai haven't really been on the back of that many huge losses. I think also that KKR RCB match could be really instrumental when it comes to the fourth place choice, because those teams are grouped very, very tightly. And that was a huge win for KKR.
I've just realised, Neil, I think that we get most of our comments from the Facebook page. And obviously that's not in operation today. So I've put out a little message to ask for questions from our lovely Twitterati out there. With Twitter still going, you can rely on Twitter. But we've got a couple of questions. One of them is quite good. Well, both of them are quite good, actually. That almost sounds detrimental to the other question. But Videshi Guna is saying, whose hairstyle is the most ridiculous, Dhoni's or a Tapper's?
Shreyas Iyer, who seems to have just like got a bowl and then done like a grade 1 or grade 0 all the way around. So yeah, Shreyas for me. Dhoni, I'm not too bad with the kind of mohawk thing. Hasn't Deepak Chahar got the same thing? Only he's dyed like a little bit at the bottom red.
It's almost like they've got too much time on their hands, isn't
it? yeah. Being having a group of young men with too much money and having them all locked up together, you're gonna get silly stuff going on. I'm quite glad that that this is the least of it. Well, at least they haven't all tried to do the Phil Foden.
Yeah. I watched Man City the other day, and Foden's back to his normal colour, so that's past us, thankfully. The Dhoni's mohawk, have you ever seen him with it actually up?
No, not yet. No. What I did notice, has Dhoni got a contract with Just for Men? He's not looking as grey and distinguished as he was before. The only thing I'm glad about is that he hasn't gone the traditional Indian way of using henna and getting a sort of bright orange hairdo, because my word, that is not a good look.
I know Sonny Gavaskar, when they were talking about something very similar, I think, and he admitted that he dyes his hair because old Sonny Gavaskar is getting on a little bit, and I think he's got very lustrous dark locks still. So I think that's not totally natural from Mr. G. The other question that's come in.
One thing on that. When do you think we're going to get our first addition to Shane Warne's stable with the Advanced Hair Studio? I think someone said that Mishra may be a good candidate, or have had a little bit of work done that way. Are we going to see some adverts with Indian players there?
I was going to say, because there hasn't been an Indian one, has there? Just trying to think of. Would Mishra
Gooch? I think Mishra's had something, because it was looking beautiful last time I
it's whether they consider Mishra to be big enough of a star. You need Virat Kohli to lose his hair overnight, or MSD, don't you? For that to really work. Sanjay, thank you for your message, Sanjay. He says, aren't you getting the feeling that CSK have gone off the boil? I've got a sneaky feeling it's going to be RCB against Delhi eventually for the title. Well, Sanjay, if you listen to yesterday's podcast, that's how we felt too. How does Neil feel?
I think we spoke about it a little bit when I was last on, or I was on quite a few times last week. I think I said I think it'll be RCB versus CSK in the final. I think Delhi really seemed to, when Prithvi Shaw was out injured, they really seemed to miss his impetus, and I think Stoinis, is his hamstring still a bit dicky? I think that's a big loss as well, because Steve Smith is currently, well, I think for about 8 years he hasn't been a good T20 player, and he stalled their team when he was batting there. So they seem more susceptible at the moment. CSK managed to carry Rayner for quite a while at the moment and still get by, and carry MSD. I was discussing. Well, I was.
Has he left us? Has he finally frozen? I might be all on my own now on this Cricket Badger podcast, because Neil has gone very, very still on the screen in front of me. I think the connection has finally gone. What's happening with the world? The internet, Facebook, everything seems to be folding.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back in audio and in stilted pictures.
Am I back there? Type role from the 2016 World Cup, where he barely batted, barely bowled, but his tactical nous was enough to keep him in the team, because quite frankly, this team bats down to 9 at the moment. There's only Hazelwood, because Bravo, Thakur and Chahar all bats. They all bat very well. So there's only Hazelwood who doesn't really contribute. So drop MSD down to 10. Just have him captaining, like Darren Sammy did, like KKR may have to do with Owen Morgan, because quite frankly, his return to
We have Rajasthan Royals taking on the Mumbai Indians tomorrow, and the way the table's set up, that's basically whoever loses that is out of the competition. Whoever wins that does give themselves kind of like half a sniff, very faint sniff. And it's really in the interest of one of those teams to win that convincingly, isn't it? To try and just make their net run rate a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't really call it with these two teams, because they're just so mind-blowingly inconsistent. You honestly don't know who's going to turn up, because MI have got all these proven superstars who just haven't stepped up, or have only done it sporadically through the whole season. The only person who is in any sort of form at the moment is Sarab Tiwari, who isn't even a regular player. It's just that Ishan Kishan's been dreadful. I think with Rajasthan, they are, well, Jaiswal and Lewis are explosive, but I mean, Jaiswal is very young. You can forgive him being hit and miss. Evan Lewis tends to be a bit hit and miss himself, although I think he's excellent. They rely massively on Sanju Samson, but their batting lineup is pretty shallow for me. I think what both teams have are excellent pace bowling attacks, which have really carried them through the season so far. So it's anyone's game. It's not so much who plays well on the day. It's who messes up less badly than the other.
I mean, basically, either Rajasthan or Mumbai will be played 13, points 12 alongside KKR after tomorrow's game, but with a worse net run rate. I'm not sure. The maths is beyond me in terms of whether a kind of like 0.5 difference in net run rate is actually achievable in terms of overturning it. KKR would have to be battered, and whoever comes from behind would have to probably have 2 very convincing wins to make it anything like close, I think. Sanjay's taking us back to the hair. And the hair seems to be the major talking point today. Gautam Gambhir has been part of the Advanced Hair Studio, he says, if he's not wrong.
Okay. Well, to be fair, he is the Indian version of Michael Vaughan, so and Shane Warne, as far as his comments on social media and in the cricketing media go. So that makes absolute sense. Guy who's defines clickbait. Maybe there's some kind of relationship there. If you're very clickbaity, then you will lose your hair very early. It's a warning, kids.
Clickbait, hair loss goes side by side. And I mean, yeah. I'm not going to go down that route. I'm looking forward to tomorrow's game. Mumbai Indians against Rajasthan Royals. It might be the last time I watch my team Mumbai with any sense of hope whatsoever. In this edition of the IPL, probably for both Rajasthan and for Mumbai, the mega auctions coming at exactly the right time. Certainly for your team, Sunrisers Hyderabad, and probably for the Punjab Kings as well. And the bottom four are going to have to go away, regroup, and wonder how they're going to target the mega auction. Kolkata Knight Riders definitely favourites to pick up fourth place, and if it stays as it is in terms of the order, RCB will certainly be hoping they can overturn CSK, but it'll be RCB in the third. This is fourth against KKR with DC and CSK, repeating today's match in terms of the first route through to the final. In terms of one last question, Neil, to round off today, in terms of IPLs that we've seen down the years, how good has this one been? Do you think it's lost any impetus because of the fact that we've had it in two chunks?
I think there is a loss of narrative, for want of a better word. You could see sort of a team story unfolding, the rises and falls, people coming into form, getting out of form previously, and yeah, I mean we've spoken before about the issues with the Blast in the UK, and a major one is that the tournament is disjointed, so people don't get that sense of story going along. And I think we've lost out.
All of the best tournaments in the world, as far as I'm concerned. The Big Bash goes on too long now. It's tried to mimic the IPL, but the IPL can sustain it because it's got the interest in it, going a bit longer. But the best tournaments in the world are played over a short period of weeks in a chunk, where it goes from the first match all the way through to the final, and you follow, as you say, the narrative all the way through, the peaks and troughs, the form, the disasters and the triumphs as you go through, and then you see somebody lift the trophy at the end of it. And I think this IPL has suffered as a result of that hiatus of a few months between two incarnations, when both basically most of the teams have turned up with a different cast.
Yeah. I mean the player loss during the break has changed things massively, and I also think that the cricket has suffered by the fact that they've come to tough pitches in the UAE, where the IPL as a product could have sustained tough pitches to begin with, which players then grew into and started getting better scores. You saw better games dealing with those conditions. But having the break and then coming into this, so people are doing it cold. By the time that players get used to the conditions, it's the World Cup that's going to get the benefit, not the IPL.
Yeah, I mean, you almost needed the second half to be played on absolute roads where you're going to get big scores to kind of delight the masses and to kind of add the extra. I mean, I really like the kind of 130, 140s takes on 130, 140. You get better finishes. Like today, gets to the last over. There's a little bit more of a kind of jeopardy and tension factor in those kind of games, rather than sort of 240 plays 220, which, you get fours and sixes and what have you, but sometimes those can be very much one-way traffic. It's nice to see the bowlers get a little bit of a say in these matches as well at the moment, which is very good indeed. But we finish off today after a very good game. I think personally the best two sides in the competition, although CSK maybe just on the wane a little bit, but Delhi Capitals on to the top of the table, CSK just behind them still, and RCB very much in contention for one of those top two places. KKR looking the favourites to take that fourth spot. Neil Varani,
Yeah,
You're
just one thing, James.
monumental here, aren't you? Monumental.
No, it's just I was reading on Twitter before we started, and I'm sure some of the listeners and viewers may be wondering, but apparently the umpire was correct with the call in the last over. What I read in the rules is that a ball needs to pitch outside. It needs to land off the pitch before it passes by the wickets for it to be a no ball. So it doesn't hit the cut strip, but it does actually bounce. That ball from Bravo, wasn't it? That didn't bounce by the time that it passed the wickets, and that was why it was a wide. And it's properly in the fine print, but I think the umpire actually got it correct. Whereas, I watched it first up, and what have they done? It's like the DRS for Punjab Kings that got turned down the other day. It's just a complete mess. But it appears that they were right.
It could have been really controversial that as well, couldn't it? If Delhi Capitals hadn't got home, as we say, I mean, both of these sides have qualified for the Final Four, but being in that top two is massively important. And Delhi had taken a massive stride towards that today in getting to that top two. And if that had altered that proceedings and Delhi had lost because of that, Ricky Ponting would have certainly, for one, would have been stomping around with smoke coming out of his ears. Ricky obviously hasn't read that fine print.
Well, we actually saw the third umpire calling the front foot no ball. The catalyst for getting that done was RCB versus Mumbai, I think, where someone got out off the last ball where Malinga, I think, overstepped, and no one picked that up. This could have ended up changing things had it been incorrect. And it appears generally that it has to be something happening wrong, either in the IPL or to India, because they've got the clout to stamp their feet and say, this isn't right. You've actually got to sort out, in the ICC or say, all right, actually, we will make the changes and make the investment to get things right.
I have to say, Neil, I think the umpiring in the tournament's been actually okay. I mean, the couple of wide calls, I think, wides are very difficult, especially when the batsman's moving around. But apart from that, I think they've done a very good job.
Yeah, I can't really complain about it.
And it's a tough job as well, Neil, because players almost get away with mistakes. It's T20, it's fast and it's furious, and you can make a mistake in a T20. Umpires can't, because they're absolutely under the microscope with replays from every angle. Everything they do wrong gets exposed, and I think they've done a really good job.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And look, there are a billion people who are going to be dissecting it, watching it, using slow motion and all the different angles to dissect your decision afterwards with tools that you don't have at the time. I would not want to have to perform under that type of pressure.
No, I wouldn't either. Rajasthan Royals then against Mumbai Indians is the match tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about all things that, and hopefully Facebook and everything else. The world will have returned to some kind of social media normality. Neil Varani, thank you very much for keeping your appointment today. I was supposed to have Naman on, and Naman, if you're watching, really sorry, but I couldn't actually get the link to you to actually join us today. So I'm sure Naman will be on at least a couple of times this week with his words of wisdom as we go through the final stages of the group phase of this IPL. It's been pretty exciting. There is more excitement around the corner, and there is a trophy to be doled out in the not too distant future. So join us for all of that, and join